Welcome everyone to our Elevating Like a Pro series presented by GMC. They're such an important ally at the intersection of entrepreneurship, technology, lifestyle, business, and culture for all of us who are building inclusive and equitable businesses. And for that, of course, I'm truly, truly grateful. For everyone joining us in the audience today, please know that you are the key to elevating Black business innovators. So thank you for not only being with us right now, but of course, for joining us in the work ahead, because there's a long path ahead for all of us. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Corey Hale, the CEO and co-founder of Culture Banks, and we're going to unpack the importance of elevating Black business innovation by digging into the data and the long-term implications that culture plays for Black founders seeking innovative solutions for scaling up their businesses. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into our conscious conversation around elevating Black business innovation with our excellent panelists today, starting with our moderator, Courtney Connley. She is an award-winning journalist who serves as the senior editor for Chief, which is a private membership network that connects and supports C-suite women. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Corey. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here today. I mean, when I was asked to lead this conversation with these amazing panelists, I instantly said, sign me up, no questions asked. And so I'm so happy that today is here. I'm so happy to dive into our conversation. But before we get into our topic, I love to introduce our amazing panelists. First up, we have Brian Brackeen, who is the general partner at Lightship Capital, the $50 million Cincinnati-based VC firm dedicated to backing underrepresented entrepreneurs in the Midwest area. Brian is a thought leader in the artificial intelligence space, having founded and led a globally recognized provider of face recognition technologies. In addition to his work at Lightship Capital, Brian lectures extensively around the world on entrepreneurship, code, the digital economy, AI, and machine learning. Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
In addition to Brian, we also have next up Kelly Burton, a political scientist, serial entrepreneur, change agent, and social critic who serves as executive director of the Black Innovation Alliance, which is a national coalition of ecosystem leaders committed to ensuring fair inclusion in the innovation economy. Kelly serves as the board of directors at the Center for Action and Contemplation, as well as an advisory board for South by Southwest Pitch, the Emory University Center for Ethics, and was recently added to the executive board of Fast Company magazine. Kelly and Brian, welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Awesome. Now, Brian, I want to start our conversation off with you because we know that the majority of Black founders have a very hard time raising $1 million plus in capital. And so to start our conversation off, I'd love for you to tell us a bit about your path to becoming a venture capitalist, as well as speak to us a bit about the unique space that Lightship Capital's multi-million-dollar fund operates in.
Yeah, well, the problem is much longer than my background, so I'll start with that. So again, Brian Brackeen, general partner at Lightship Capital. As mentioned, we invest in women and minorities in the Midwest and the South, the center of the country, essentially. And we're focused on this problem because it is so difficult. You know, such a small percentage of venture dollars go to a Black-led company or a minority-led company. And then when you add gender to it, it's absolutely kind of mind-bogglingly astonishing. So my personal challenge was, you know, when starting Kairos, a facial recognition AI firm, started in San Francisco and ultimately moved it to Miami. We ended up raising a lot of money, but it took a lot of pitches, right? It takes Black founders 10 times more pitches to get the same amount of money as a majority founder. In my case, I pitched the company over 1,000 times. I got 880 no's and 120 yeses, right? So as we all know, sometimes you hear these stories of people like meeting somebody at a coffee shop in San Francisco, handing them a napkin, you know, $10 million later, like they have this big idea. And it's the unfairness in that is huge. And we leave out so many great innovators and entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And Kelly, I want to jump to you because we know that in recent years, we've seen a surge of businesses and organizations coming online to support underrepresented founders. And I know that in 2017, you started Founders of Color. And now, as I mentioned earlier, you're the executive director of the Black Innovation Alliance, which exists to support organizations such as yours. Can you speak to us a bit about how these organizations are helping to build strong Black businesses? Because as Brian mentioned, he spoke a bit about the challenges that Black businesses face in today's economy and have historically faced. So can you just speak to us a bit about how organizations such as yours, Founders of Color, are helping to support Black entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. And thanks again, Courtney and Corey. So excited to be part of the conversation today. So I'll provide a little bit of backstory on Black Innovation Alliance, and then that'll give you a better understanding of who our members are and the work that they do. So BIA is a national coalition of innovator support organizations, ISOs. So these are organizations that exist to support small and medium-sized business owners, tech founders, and creative technologists. BIA today is a little over a year old. Probably about 18 ecosystem leaders came together the top of 2020 to say, how do we create a collective front around our work? Because we're all out here activating these programs, doing this work. We're doing it in isolation. There's not enough money, not enough resources. We're all going after the same scraps and crumbs. So how do we come together to create some sort of collective effort that enables us to really direct the resources in the ways that are required? And so today, BIA is 50 organizations strong. Our organizations are in 24 cities, almost as many states, and they support upwards of 300,000 entrepreneurs and innovators of color. And so when we think about the sorts of programs that they execute and the work that they do, it ranges depending on the organization. It includes accelerators. They provide coaching and mentoring, direct funding, funder matching, networking, pitch competitions, and our members are getting increasingly creative about how they support organizations and small businesses across the country. And so we're excited about kind of the future of this work and are really interested in kind of painting that future so that we can reverse engineer back into it.
Awesome, awesome. And Brian, you mentioned earlier when we were speaking about Lightship Capital and UL's multi-million-dollar fund, the amount of times Black founders often have to pitch before they even get a yes. And so when we're thinking about investing in the broader venture capital ecosystem, is elevating Black innovation within these institutions something that's more tangible for funds that are created by people of color? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for those in the audience, there's some really good work done by The Plug or TP Insights. Cheryl Dorsey does a variety of kind of deep dives.
I love Cheryl Dorsey and the work she's doing. Yes. Her whole team.
Also follow her Instagram, Women Who Like Dessert, also fire. But on this topic, she did some research that shows that minority founders, and particularly Black founders that go through Black accelerators have better outcomes, even if they go to like a YC and things that later. So I think going back to your question, it's really important for Black people to have Black funds, Black accelerators, like an entire ecosystem. It doesn't mean that you can only have to stay in that ecosystem, but it does mean that at different points, you'll have someone to talk to help you, to support you, who understands what maybe the venture capitalist was trying to say to you versus kind of what was coming across, or vice versa. Help a venture capitalist who might be the majority of venture capitalists say, hey, you're missing this because you're distracted by this bias or this thing. This is a big market. We see a lot of issues around CPG and Black hair care, Black, products that we know a lot about. But then when you go to meet like let's say a 60-year-old white male investor and you're talking about a Black hair care product, it's hard for them to really understand the market opportunity in that. So we like to try to kind of be the cartilage between those two groups.
Awesome, awesome. In this next question, I want to open it up to both of you all, because we all know how important relationship building is in this space and how important relationship building is to Black entrepreneurs and Black business owners. And for you all, as two people who are in this space, who do you all turn to for guidance in business, and who's in your network? Who do you all look to connect to and turn to for advice? And Kelly, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So over the course of my entrepreneurial career, I've been a part of a lot of programs, both paid and free. And one of the most effective was probably EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. So to qualify for EO, your business has to make $1 million or more. They also have an accelerator program that's dedicated to helping your business get to the $1 million mark within 3 years. A lot of folks don't know that less than 4% of all businesses hit the $1 million mark. It's a very, very difficult threshold. And seeing EO, that was one of the reasons that I started Founders of Color, because I remember just lamenting, like, people of color need something like this. Often the programming is targeted to early stage or latter stage. It's not really targeted to those folks who are mid stage that are generating a couple $100,000 a year and need to figure out how they get over the solopreneurship hump. And so that was really the impetus for starting Founders of Color, the belief that people of color likewise deserved high quality, high caliber business supports that were not focused on startups or, rapid growth tech companies. But in terms of who I look to help me grow my business at this point, I lean heavily into peer networking. EO focused on peer networking. A lot of times we think, oh, I need to find this mentor who is 10 years ahead or 20 years ahead or has an 8-figure, 9-figure business. You might just need the person who figured out the problem you have 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, that's the person that you need, because somebody who's been in the game for 40 years is not going to be able to tell you how to build a badass email sequence, right? Or how you effectively hire a virtual assistant, or how you essentially create a cadence for keeping in touch with your investors. So I rely heavily on peer networking, peer support, reaching out to my colleagues who might not be all the way down the lane, but are a little bit more proximate to me in my experience, because I find that feedback and that input to be invaluable.
Awesome. I think peer networking is so critical, and I'm happy you brought that up. Brian, what about you? Who do you turn to for guidance in business, and who's in your network?
I literally can't improve on Kelly's answer. Peer-to-peer networking is really important. EO is amazing. Some other specifics. Endeavor is a really great organization. It's actually an international organization that now operates in the United States. I'm on the board of Endeavor Midwest. And we are really good about being in communities, meeting people, bringing them into the fold, particularly good people, and then helping them to grow their business. If you guys are familiar with this, kind of like the PayPal mafia effect, you kind of take one successful exit and then other things come out of it. It could be Elon Musk, it could be Founders Fund, it could be 500 startups, all come out of one success at selling PayPal, years ago. The idea of Endeavor is that if we can find really positive people and help them grow, they're always going to hire positive people because they're positive people, right? And then let's get them rich, and then they will spin out more positive wealth. And it's shown that you can actually impact an entire country's GDP through this approach. And so find your nearest Endeavor office, reach out to them, and ask them for help.
Awesome. And to stay on the topic a bit longer about the importance of building relationships, another question for both of you, and Kelly, if you want to start us off with this, how would you suggest entrepreneurs seeking innovative solutions to transforming their business build and maintain strong relationships, not only with their consumers, but also with investors?
One word: systems. Systems. Like, automate as much of it as you possibly can. That's the biggest mistake that I make. People think, oh, I'm going to have time to do this one-on-one follow-up. And it's like, you never have enough time. There's never enough time to follow up, to continue the touches. So the more you can automate that, the better. So HubSpot, MailChimp, I mean, I'm not promoting nobody in particular, but my point is that identify technology that is going to enable you to automate as much of that as possible. We were in a team meeting yesterday, and our head of corporate partnerships referred to it as one-to-one is about fundraising, and one-to-many is marketing. And so build systems that enable you to maintain those relationships, both one-to-one and one-to-many.
And Brian, is there anything else that you want to add to that in terms of advice for how to maintain strong relationships with consumers and investors alike?
Yeah, 2 answers: do and don't. So do go deal with your customers, your best customers, meet with them, talk to them, learn why they love the product, how you can replicate those things on those dimensions. You can never be not served by talking to your customer. Like, it's always a good thing. On the don't side, if you're growing really, really fast, you can walk into an investor's office on the same day and say, this is what I'm doing. Do you want in or not? You don't have to have a relationship. This idea of investors, like cultivating long-term relationships with investors is permeated by investors telling founders that. It doesn't necessarily serve the founder. If you're doing a great job, you're gonna get the money. If you're not, maybe you could kind of maybe out of pity, right? Or like you get a check. That can't be the goal. That can't be the strategy, right? Just go out, crush it, and then seek investment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Digital Undivided released a study that looked at the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Black founders specifically. And it found in the report that 82% say that they've lost revenue because of COVID-19. And now as the economy starts to recover, what do you all think are some of the long-term impacts that this will have on Black founders? And I don't know, either of you want to jump in here, Kelly or Brian, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that in terms of the long-term impacts you think this pandemic will have on Black founders.
Brian, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, there's honestly, there's some positives and there's some negatives. I mean, we're seeing that people are entering entrepreneurship at the highest levels yet, particularly amongst Black women, which were always one of the higher groups and are one of the most educated groups in the country. So I think that bodes well for the Black entrepreneur kind of in general, more people in the game. Now, for the folks that were already in the game, and then this pandemic shows up, rough time for everyone. We didn't get our PPP loans at the same rate, all the things. That said, I don't think it has to be a forever impact. I think no one's better at kind of like taking the punches and like making it happen anyway than minority founders, period. And so I don't think there has to be long-term impacts. You got to just keep going.
Yeah, I love that. The thing that comes to mind for me and something we're really wrestling with at Black Innovation Alliance is what it looks like to get more and more entrepreneurs and small business owners of color online to figure out that digital readiness piece and how to get more companies tech enabled, because this is kind of a catalyzing moment. It's going to help us if we get it right to get more small businesses of color online in a variety of ways. We're doing actually a digital entrepreneurship conference in February to try to figure out and map what are the key domains of digital entrepreneurship, because there are folks that are making bank and I'm like, what are you doing? What platform are you on? You making money off of ads on a gaming platform? How did that work? Explain that to me. So it's happening so fast, and a lot of us that are in the programming space are directing programming to a couple specific sorts of businesses. And then there's all of this wild, wild west that's happening over here. And we need to figure that out so that we can likewise direct supports to these areas where folks are getting paid online, because the same disparities exist, whether it's social media influencing or whether it's Etsy, or whether it's online education. There are just so many avenues where people are making money. So it's like, how do we amplify that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And speaking of the pandemic, I want to ask a follow-up question, because we've been speaking a lot about the importance of strong relationships with investors and consumers and the limited access that Black founders typically have to venture capital funding. When we think about the long-term impact of the pandemic and the effects it had, and with all of us being remote, even as we are right now, do you think that will help in terms of widening access to venture capital for Black founders and other underrepresented founders? Do you think that could be one pro that comes out of this? What are your thoughts around opening the access that Black founders could potentially now have in this virtual remote world?
Well, there's more than twice. There's probably 3 times as many more Black funds now than there were before George Floyd. It's a tangible difference. Not all funds are created equal, but their mere existence is critically important. I think we probably went from like 5 to 35, right? Something like that. So I think that's really important. That said, the gap was just so wildly large that even that is not enough. And we're not holding enough of the corporations accountable for their promises and then not delivering. So if we had got every single dollar promised, we could make real progress, right, with those dollars. But there's a lot of folks that are not delivering what they've promised. And I'd really like to see us hold those folks accountable. I personally have been trying, I've been emailing people and emailing CEOs to very little response, because it's always been just lip service.
I agree, Brian, 100% on that. And it's something that we are likewise trying to figure out at Black Innovation Alliance, like what does the movement play? Because one of the major assumptions with BIA is there is power in numbers, and we haven't really been able to activate in a way that is necessary for us to have real power and influence in these spaces. And so I think there's a tremendous amount of work to be done, but what we know is these issues and challenges are not going away anytime soon. People of color just have a different voice. Our voice has been amplified in this moment in ways that I can't see rolling back. We do know that there are certain windows of opportunity that are like, oh. So we're all trying to figure out like, how do we get as much while these windows are closed, are open? But we've got to figure out movement strategy. Like we have to figure out a collective play. That's the only way that Black folks in particular have made any major strides around civil rights and social justice is through movements. So that's something that we're trying to put a little bit of power, a little bit of thinking to over at Black Innovation Alliance.
And as we talk about shifting the paradigm on inclusive capital, and obviously there's, as you both mentioned, there's a lot more work that needs to be done, but what are some of the things that you think we're getting right? What are some things that you both are optimistic about in this space, in this time right now? Brian, do you want to go first with answering that?
Yeah, the quality of company we're seeing is very high. I think sometimes we even over talk about the struggles because the people that I see are doing such innovative things, right? I think, and they're making real revenue. They're not sometimes seeing venture capital. Like we just led a round of funding into a company called Femi Secrets. It's a woman's period panty. It's got an amazing stitching on the inside. Davielle Jackson, the CEO, created this compound herself. She's a chemist that allows a much more natural menstrual flow, but doesn't like have all the messes and things of that nature. She's got 14, 15,000 subscribers to this product. This is monthly reoccurring revenue, right? But again, like an older, 6-year-old white guy is not going to see that as an important innovation, even though she's doing, millions and millions a year in revenue. We were very excited to lead that investment. And that's why I'm hopeful and I'm seeing good deals and we're investing in them.
Just quick shout out to Brian for the freedom with which he's able to talk about menstrual flow. Like, boom.
Yeah. Well trained. Mother, sister, yes. All girl cousins.
Yes, let's normalize periods up in here.
Yes. It's good business. Yeah.
Amen, brother. But in terms of what I'm optimistic about, I'm not going to lie, like doing this work within Black Innovation Alliance, I'm optimistic every single day because I'm seeing our community come together and work together and ideate and build things and create things in the spirit of community and mutualism. That's what I get really excited about. When we think about a modern day civil rights movement, it's an economic movement. Like it's about achieving financial parity in this country. And so that's the work that I'm really excited about. Like, what is it really going to take for us to close the racial wealth gap? We are very clear at BIA. We're going to talk about the state of Black entrepreneurship, but so much. We are concerned with the future and building the future today. We are tired of talking about the state of, we know it. We know what it is. We can rattle off the data and statistics verbatim in our sleep. But how about we talk about what we want it to look like at 2045 when this nation flips to majority minority and people of color are the majority in this country. And based on the recent census, it's probably going to happen even sooner than that because it's the first time that we actually saw a numerical decrease in the amount of white folks in this country. And that's largely because as white grandparents are dying, they're being replaced by their grandchildren of color because most interracial marriages include a white person, right? And so that's our reality. Like we are really talking about new majorities and we've got to figure out how we create greater inclusion and economic parity in this country. It's like, we've got to figure it out. It's an existential crisis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I want to be mindful of time because obviously this is something we can talk about literally all day. But before we move into our audience questions, I want to ask you both one last question. As we move forward as a society in creating this new dynamic of power that is more inclusive, that's more collaborative, that's more diverse, how do you define what it takes for Black entrepreneurs to elevate like a pro? Brian, we can go back to you for you to answer that one if you want.
How do we define, man, that's a tough, success can look very differently in different industries. So that's success for a CPG company, for consumer packaged good company is different than an AI company. That said, you should feel the momentum, right? If I want to generalize it, you should feel like it's inevitable. You should feel like the customers are showing up and that you're having a hard time fulfilling the needs of your customers, whether they be digital customers or physical customers. And when that happens, one, that means that the world is coming around, right? And it means two, that's a great opportunity to look into some of the resources that Kelly provided, right, that I've provided, and seek out help. You don't have to, it's actually more dangerous to not have good help when things are scaling than it is in the beginning, right? You can kill a business without good feedback, and good feedback isn't what you read on the internet either. Like, it needs to be from really good, 100%. Trusted sources. And again, everybody in the Black Innovation Alliance is people that are kind of vetted, and she doesn't let folks in that are trash. Like you can go to the resources that can really help you to be successful.
100%, 100%. And mine would be more probably directed to traditional small businesses, but I used to hear this a lot in EO, but it's so important to not just work in your business, but on your business. You've got to work on your business. And so many folks get just trapped in the weeds, and they find it very difficult to manage people. They find it very difficult to hand off responsibilities. They want to hold on to everything, and you're not going to grow that way. In order for you to grow, you need systems, you need teams, you need to trust people, you need to delegate. And so I would say that if you're really serious about growing your business, you need to you need to work on it, not in it, well, you're gonna have to work in it a little bit, but you really need to shift your mindset in that regard and invest in yourself. One of the things that we're trying to figure out how we introduce even among our members is everything shouldn't be free. And everything shouldn't be subsidized. Like, a lot of us have the resources to invest in ourselves. And so, it's really important, whether it's a business coach, whether it's some sort of cohort-based programming, put some skin in the game as it relates to your own professional development and your business development.
Awesome, awesome. So you hear that? Invest in yourself. Thank you so much, Kelly. And now we're going to jump into our audience questions. And the first question that we have is for you, Brian, and this is a good one. Brian, what are some of the hardest challenges you faced while becoming an investor that you feel were unique to you being a Black investor?
Oh, okay, let me pick one. It's probably around, people think that we're doing social impact work when we're trying to generate market rate return, right? Mm-hmm. Investing in women and minorities is not charity. Right? We're not asking for any handouts here, but we're trying to find the best companies and give them the money they need to be successful. And so having to break through that bias is definitely one of the bigger challenges that I'm sure my white counterparts don't have to explain, that their venture fund isn't a charity, right? They never have to answer that question, right? I would also just say, for the questioner and for the folks at home, we're making a bunch of investments at the accelerator stage in Cincinnati and Tulsa, Oklahoma, $500,000 investments at the accelerator stage in Cincinnati, $250,000 investments in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to rebuild Black Wall Street. You don't have to be tech, it could be many different industries, but please, apply on our website, lightship.capital. We are trying to write these checks right now. We're trying to get this money, invest this money. So we want to see more people apply.
And can you say one more time where they can apply again?
Absolutely. Lightship.capital is our website, and there's an apply for funding button. Hit that, put in your information. It's very, very short, and we'll start to diligence the company. And like I said, we're right? 10 checks in the next year in those two cities. So we're looking for companies to invest in.
Amazing, amazing. And Kelly, the next question is for you. What is the most foundational thing you feel people need to innovate that they can start doing today?
So I'm gonna give you two, and one is a shameless plug. But the first is, again, for my small business owners, eliminate as much credit card debt as you possibly can, because business credit card debt is the devil. I'm exaggerating. It's not the devil because it's how most small businesses capitalize their business, right? On credit cards. You need credit cards, but the challenge, especially with business credit cards, is you tend to be looking at an interest rate from 16% to 22%. That means if you're spending $10,000 a year, you're giving that credit card company $1,800 to $2,200, right? It's a major, major, major drain on your finances. And so that would be the one thing I can say that you can start doing today, like paying down that credit card debt, and seek out low interest loans. SBA loans, for instance, are a lot easier to navigate today than they were maybe 5-10 years ago. Find low interest solutions to capitalize your business if debt is the route that you're taking. And the last thing that I say is check out blackinnovationalliance.com. We've got a map on our homepage which lays out the 50 organizations that are part of the coalition, and you can see the specific type of work that they do and where they're located. It's a good way to kind of start to access the resources that you need to grow your business.
And Brian, our next question for you is, what's the best way to tap into finding investors?
So there is a website and a product called Airtable. It's like a database kind of tool that's really, really amazing. Airtable has a feature called Airtable Universe, which is people have crowdsourced databases of different things and made them available to everyone.
Wow.
For free. You don't have to sign up for anything. You just literally go to Airtable, click on Universe. You'll see all of the databases of public groups. One of those databases is a list of Black investors. Another one is a list of venture capitalists in general. So it's literally all there. You can hit export to Excel, and then it'll be on your computer, like simple as that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And the last question that we have, it looks like is for the both of you. So Kelly, I'm not sure if you want to answer this one first, or Brian, but it's how important is cultural innovation when it comes to building businesses in our community?
I'd say it's huge, right? When we think about it, there's no one group on the planet. When you think about how small Black Americans are, there's no one group on the planet that has had the sort of influence and impact on global culture as Black people, Black Americans, point blank, period. The problem is we haven't figured out how to benefit from that in any sort of meaningful monetary or financial way. And I'd say that is the thing that Black folks must figure out, like over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, like how we, and it sounds really transactional to say monetize or commodify, because our culture is so much more meaningful to us than that. But it's very painful to see other folks make money off of our culture while Black people continue to struggle in this country. So we need to kind of figure out that trade-off, because it's we're leaving a whole bunch of money on the table.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Brian? How important is cultural innovation when it comes to building businesses in our community?
So I'll go back to some of the Corey Hale methodology, right? About innovators. Innovation and innovators mean that you're not consuming the same things as everyone else. You're not watching the same shows as everyone else. You're not saying or building the same business as everyone else, right? Be innovative. Independent of what it is, you will find support from a community in that thing. But if I have to see one more list of Black Yellow Pages, like I just like everyone is like a million people are doing that. That is not it. It's not it. It's not it. So like, yeah, be different. Figure out what you do well. It's just a quick story. Our first investment was in a company called Fresh Fry. It's like a Tide Pod for commercial cooking oil. It just drop in the oil. It cleans up all the impurities.
Wow.
Put it out the next day. Great Black chemist, Louisville, Kentucky. And here's the key.
Wow.
When he was a kid, his mother would use a potato to clean the oil and get the fishy smell and taste out of the oil, so you could then use it again for like fried chicken or whatever. He became obsessed with this. All the way through his whole life, became a chemist and everything, and then we created this product, and it's one of our most successful investments, right? This is Black innovation, right? This is, there's no one more qualified than a Black grandma to tell you about how to get the most out of oil. There's nobody more qualified in the world.
So
Brian,
Brian,
life innovate.
my question is, what goes in the Crisco can now? Like, what do you have to, that's a new problem for someone to solve. What do you put in the Crisco can?
Right, it's a horrible outcome. We need that can.
To be continued, to be continued.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us and for having this amazing conversation with us. Before we go, do you both want to let people know where they can find you and connect with you on social media, or give people the details on that?
Sure, you can find me. I am Kelly Burton across all channels. You search, probably I'm most active on LinkedIn. You can just search me by Kelly Burton, and we can connect there. Also check out Black Innovation Alliance at blackinnovationalliance.com to learn more about what our organizations are working on across the country. And shout out to Culture Banks, which is a BIA member.
Look at the plug, the plug. Find me, so it's at Brian Brackeen, just my name. So at Brian Brackeen on Twitter. I'm spicy on there. It's a good time. And then everywhere else is just lightship.capital. You can apply for funding there. Also, lightship.foundation is where all of our kind of like programming, where we give like either Workflow Wednesdays. We actually have a pitch competition every 5 weeks. We give away grant $25,000 to the winner. So there's a lot of money. We're putting a lot of money into the world. Please use some of our programming.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much again. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm just gonna hop back in really quickly and thank all of you for joining us. Courtney, Kelly, Brian, you guys, first of all, are so entertaining. I think that this could go on for another 10, 20 minutes. I've learned a lot about you, Brian, and a lot about you, Kelly, that I didn't know before. I definitely love that at the beginning, Brian was giving us like the poetry slam snaps as Kelly was speaking. I was like, wow, Brian is taking us back right here, but also about the innovation, because we are building so many great companies across the country, and we need groups like the Black Innovation Alliance. We need funds like what you all have at Lightship Capital to be supporting this work and making sure that these entrepreneurs really have that full scale ecosystem. So just thank you all for the work that you're doing. And also, Courtney, there are not enough Black business news journalists out there doing this work, highlighting what's going on in our community. And I am so grateful as a fellow journalist to people like you that are keeping us going and uplifted. So just thank you, Courtney, so much as well. And once again, I want to thank our partner, General Motors, GMC specifically. And I want to say that we are going to be back next month with another webinar on elevating like a pro. So be on the lookout for that information very, very soon. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.